So I was reading the book of Amos the other day, and Amos describes a massive earthquake. He predicts it actually. And the funny thing is, I started doing some research, and archaeological and geological evidence confirms that there was a massive 8th century BC earthquake in the exact time frame that Amos describes. This happens pretty often with the Bible, though. The archaeological evidence and the different historical facts actually line up with the Bible to confirm what's being said. Amos chapter 1, verse 1. The words of Amos, who was among the sheep breeders of Tekoa, which he saw concerning Israel in the days of Uzziah king of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam the son of Joash, king of Israel, 2 years before the earthquake. This is setting up the time frame for these prophecies, right? This is telling you when Amos predicted this. He predicted this 2 years before it happened in the timeline of Uzziah, king of Judah, around the 8th century BC. Once we actually get down to the prophecies that Amos wrote in that time frame, we have Amos chapter 8, verse 8, which says, "Shall the land not tremble for this, and everyone mourn who dwells in it? All of it shall swell like the river, heave and subside like the river of Egypt." Notice it's talking about the land trembling. Amos chapter 9, verse 1. "I saw the Lord standing by the altar, and he said, Strike the doorposts, that the thresholds may shake, and break them on the heads of them all. I will slay the last of them with the sword. He who flees from them shall not get away, and he who escapes from them shall not be delivered." We have the beginning of the book telling us that he prophesied this 2 years before it happened. And then when we actually get into the prophecies, we see him talking about the earth shaking and the trembling of the doorposts and stuff like that, to show you that this massive earthquake is going to happen. And then later on in the book of Zechariah, in chapter 14, verse 5, it says this, "Then you shall flee through my mountain valley, for the mountain valley shall reach to Azal. Yes, you shall flee, as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Thus the Lord my God will come, and all the saints with you." Zechariah is being written about 250 years from the time of Amos prophesying this. So this earthquake was massive, and it lasted in memory for years and years to come. That's why 250 years later, Zechariah is still writing about it. Archaeologists have uncovered destruction layers from a massive 8th century BC earthquake at sites including Hazor, Megiddo, Lachish, and Gezer. They found collapsed walls, tilted structures, crushed skeletons, destruction without burn layers. Now that's important because if there's no burn layers, it probably means it wasn't war. The seismologists estimate that the earthquake happened around 760 to 750 BC. They put a possible magnitude on it. Now, we don't have a for sure magnitude, but they put a possible magnitude on it at 8.2 magnitude. Now that lines up with the reign of Uzziah, the reign of Jeroboam II, and the time of Amos. The evidence is showing us that what Amos wrote down, what he predicted, came true. Historically, through archaeological findings and destruction layers, we can prove that. This is a big deal. This is prophecy confirmed. The destruction dates for these sites via pottery, typology, and other methods cluster around 760 to 750 BC. So, again, the proof is right there. It lines up exactly with the reign of Uzziah. And that's what Amos said was going to happen. Now, there's multiple cities, hundreds of miles apart, that receive this major destruction. So that's how we know that it was such a big, massive earthquake. Also, along with the fact that Zechariah is writing about it 250 years later. So this is a serious event that happened historically in the Middle East. And Amos predicted it. And then it was remembered and Zechariah wrote about it. And then, thousands of years later, archaeological evidence comes along to show and prove to us today that it took place exactly like Amos said it would. How much more evidence do you need? How many more times do you need the Bible to be confirmed by outside sources? How many times do you need the Bible to give you an event and the historical evidence prove it for you to start believing? These people wrote down what they seen, not just on earthquakes and, other things like that, but the supernatural experiences they had. They wrote the stuff down that they seen. And if we can trust them to report this earthquake correctly, if we can trust them to report other historical details correctly, then I believe we can trust them to report the spiritual details correctly as well. But that's just my opinion. And I just thought this was an interesting topic. So tell me what you think. Like and follow for more content like this. And I appreciate anybody that watches.